Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got some really fascinating material to dig into today about Lord Northbourne. Looks like we'll be exploring the intersection of ecology, religion, and traditional wisdom.
Absolutely fascinating figure, Lord Northbourne.
Yeah, and we've got a really interesting mix of stuff to work with. Excerpts from his book, Of the Land and the Spirit, some background on similar authors and their books.
Right?
And even some of his personal letters.
Oh, wow.
So I'm excited to dive in. How about you?
Absolutely. Lord Northbourne was so ahead of his time in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, he saw the interconnectedness of everything. Our treatment of the land, our spiritual lives, even our approach to art, all flowing together. It's a perspective we need maybe now more than ever.
It really is. And one of the things that jumped out at me right away is this question he poses to his descendants. Whence did we come? What are we here for? And whither are we going? Such a fundamental question.
Yeah.
And it seems like everything he wrote and thought about was trying to grapple with that in some way.
Well, it is the core of the human experience, isn't it? And what's fascinating is how Northbourne saw those answers, not just in, philosophical arguments, but in the soil, in the cycles of nature, in the very act of gardening. There's that great quote about how gardening was no mere hobby for Northbourne, but a sacred act of communion with the divine order of nature.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I already love where this is going, but before we get too deep into his ideas, let's take a step back for those who might not be familiar with him. Who was Lord Northbourne?
Right.
I have to admit, I wasn't super familiar with him before this.
You're not alone there.
Oh.
He's not exactly a household name.
Right.
But he led such a fascinating life. Born Walter James, later becoming the third Baron Northbourne.
Okay.
And he was so much more than just a farmer, which is how he's often categorized. I mean, this was a guy who was an Olympic rower, a talented painter. Talk about a unique combination.
Great backup Olympic rower.
Yeah.
When I picture a philosophical farmer, I don't usually imagine an Olympian. It makes you wonder what he was thinking about during those races.
Yeah.
Did those experiences somehow plant the seeds for his later work? What do you think?
Well, those diverse experiences definitely shaped his worldview. I mean, think
Right.
about it. He experienced the intensity of competition, the discipline of training, and then the stark realities of war.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the fighting itself, but the disruption of life, the senseless destruction. It made him question humanity's relationship with the natural world.
It's like he lived several lives worth of experiences, all feeding into his unique perspective.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the contrast of his upbringing, too. I mean, imagine growing up amidst the bustle of London, yet spending holidays in the tranquility of the countryside.
Yeah.
That back and forth, the stark difference, instilled in him a deep appreciation for the beauty and peace of nature.
So are we saying those idyllic countryside holidays were basically the seeds of organic farming?
I'd say they were definitely part of the fertilizer. It was more than just a hobby for him. Gardening was a source of deep spiritual connection. He saw the beauty in nature as a reflection of the divine. There's that incredibly poignant anecdote about Northbourne arranging flowers every day, right up until a few days before his death.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of that quote from him about the evanescence of flowers not being something to regret.
Right.
He saw beauty in the transient nature of things, didn't he?
Absolutely. He saw the cycle of life and death in nature as a reflection of larger spiritual truths.
So how did this perspective translate into his ideas about agriculture? I mean, he's most well known for pioneering organic farming, right? Was that just about avoiding chemicals, or was there something deeper at play?
Oh, it was much bigger than just techniques. Remember that wheel of health concept we see in Of the Land and the Spirit?
Yes.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, yes. I was hoping we'd get to that. For those of us who haven't read it yet, can you break down the wheel of health for us? What's the core idea there?
Essentially, it's Northbourne's way of visualizing the interconnectedness of everything within a farming system. He talks about the rule of return, meaning everything taken from the soil should go back to it, think composting, using manure as fertilizer.
Huh?
Then there's the rule of wholeness. We should be using the whole plant or animal, not just the parts that are easy or convenient. He wasn't just talking about techniques. This was a philosophy of respecting the natural cycles and balance of the world around us.
He was way ahead of his time with that kind of thinking. But he wasn't just theorizing, was he? Didn't he point to real-world examples of these principles in action?
He did. The Hunza people, for example, Northbourne was fascinated by them. They were known for their incredible health, peaceful nature and their sustainable farming practices. They followed the rule of return and the rule of wholeness almost instinctively, and their well-being was a testament to that.
It's like that saying, what's old is new again. We tend to think of progress in terms of the latest technology, but the Hunza remind us that sometimes the oldest ways are the best.
Exactly. And the Hunza weren't the only example. Northbourne also highlighted the islanders of Tristan da Cunha and certain Eskimo tribes, all of whom thrived by living in harmony with their environment rather than trying to conquer it.
Which brings us to what I think is one of Northbourne's most powerful ideas, his critique of this very human obsession with conquering nature. It sounds like he saw that as not only arrogant, but ultimately self-defeating.
He did. He believed this idea that we're separate from nature, that we can control and dominate it, is an illusion. We are part of nature, whether we like it or not, and our attempts to conquer it will ultimately backfire.
So what's the alternative? How did he think we should relate to the natural world, especially given how much we depend on it?
Well, he talked about accepting our limitations, recognizing our dependence on something greater than ourselves. We don't find true freedom by dominating our environment, but by finding our place within it. It's about working with nature's rhythms, not against them.
That's such a powerful message, especially today, with so many environmental challenges staring us in the face. It's like he could see the path we were on.
It is. What's remarkable is that he was writing decades ago, yet his words feel incredibly relevant to the anxieties we face now. And it wasn't just about the physical environment. He connected this idea of conquering nature to our spiritual lives as well.
Okay, I can see where you're going with this.
What?
So often we try to approach our inner world the same way we approach the outer world, trying to exert control, to dominate. Is that what Northbourne was getting at?
He was. He believed that our obsession with control extends to our inner selves. We try to conquer our emotions, our thoughts, instead of simply accepting them as part of who we are. It's the same illusion of separation, just playing out on an internal level. He called it a double bondage. We're trapped by both our external limitations and the limitations of our own ego. True freedom means addressing both.
Yeah, that's really making me think. It's like he's speaking directly to our modern obsession with self-optimization, with trying to hack our way to happiness.
It's about finding wholeness, wouldn't you say? Within ourselves and in our relationship with the world around us.
Absolutely. This is already giving me a lot to unpack, but we're just scratching the surface here. We've got a whole stack of material to get through. One thing I'm curious about is what Northbourne had to say about tradition, especially in a time of such rapid change. I mean, he was writing during a period of immense technological and social upheaval.
And yet, he was a deep believer in the value of tradition, but he also made a very clear distinction between true religion and what he called mere ideologies.
Hold on, are we about to wade into some potentially controversial territory here?
Not at all. He wasn't endorsing or condemning any particular ideology.
Okay.
His point was that true religion is rooted in something beyond human construction.
Okay.
It's about connecting to a higher truth, a source of wisdom that transcends our individual opinions and desires.
Okay, that makes sense. So how did he define true religion? What were the core elements in his view?
Well, he talked about the importance of revelation, tradition, and how these connect to our doctrine, our rituals, and our ethics. He believed that a true religion must be accepted as a whole, not cherry-picked for the convenient parts. And he warned against losing touch with the deeper meaning of our traditions, of mistaking the symbol for the reality it represents.
Do you think you could give us an example of what he meant by that?
He uses the example of the Eucharist, a ritual central to many religions. He said the power of the Eucharist lies not in our intellectual understanding of it, but in its connection to a deeper truth that's revealed through tradition.
So it's about recognizing that there's more to our traditions than meets the eye. They're connected to something bigger than ourselves, something that speaks to a deeper part of us.
Exactly. He saw that connection as essential, especially in a time of rapid change. Tradition provides an anchor, a source of stability and guidance in a world that's constantly shifting.
I can see why that would appeal to him, especially given the turmoil he'd lived through. It sounds like he was concerned about what happens when we lose that connection to tradition, when we drift too far from those anchors.
He was. He saw the modern ideology of progress, with its focus on material development and constant change, as a double-edged sword. On the one hand, progress brings innovation and improvement. But he worried that this relentless pursuit of outward progress, especially when it neglects our inner world, could actually hinder our search for true freedom.
So it's not that he's against progress, But he's questioning what we're actually progressing towards.
Precisely. He asks, are we becoming more free, more connected to what truly matters, or are we just becoming more entangled in the material world, more enslaved to our desires and anxieties?
That is such a good question for all of us to be asking ourselves, especially today. But how did he define freedom if it wasn't just about material comfort and technological advancement?
Well, remember that idea of the double bondage we talked about earlier?
Right.
That's key here. He believed true freedom comes from loosening both those bonds, not just the external ones. It's about understanding and mastering our inner world as much as it is about navigating the outer world.
Which, if I'm following you, is where this idea of spirit comes in.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating something deeper within ourselves, something that transcends the purely material.
You've got it. And this is where Northbourne's gift for making complex ideas relatable really shines through. He used the analogy of breath to explain the concept of spirit. Spirit, he said, is like our breath, invisible but essential to life, something that connects us to something larger than ourselves.
It's such a beautiful way to put it because we all experience breath. We all know how vital it is to our existence. But he wasn't suggesting we just empty our minds and hope for the best.
Not at all. In fact, he cautioned against that very assumption, this idea that an empty mind will automatically be filled with what's good. He saw the danger of what he called the scientific prejudice, becoming the dominant force shaping our thinking.
What did he mean by scientific prejudice? I'm assuming he wasn't anti-science, but that he saw the limitations of a purely scientific worldview.
You're exactly right. He wasn't against science by any means, but he was concerned about the limits of a purely materialistic perspective. Science, by its nature, focuses on what's material, measurable, observable. He worried that this could blind us to other forms of knowledge, other equally valid ways of understanding the world.
So it's about recognizing that science is incredibly valuable, but it doesn't hold all the answers. Did he connect this back to the dangers of idolatry at all? It's like we can end up worshiping the tools of knowledge, mistaking them for the source of truth itself.
He did. He talked about the subtle way we can end up making God in our own image, instead of recognizing a higher truth, one that transcends our limited human understanding. It's a form of idolatry that's often harder to spot because it disguises itself as intellectual rigor or pursuit of progress.
He also wrote about the power of symbols, but also how easy it is to get stuck on the symbol itself and miss the deeper reality it's pointing to, right?
Absolutely. He saw symbols as incredibly powerful tools for conveying spiritual truths, but warned against taking them literally. He used the example of the cross, which is central to Christianity. He said the cross represents so much more than just Christ's crucifixion. It represents the intersection of the divine and the human, the vertical and the horizontal, the spiritual and the material.
So it's about training ourselves to look beyond the surface, to seek the deeper meaning behind the symbols we encounter in our lives, in our faiths, and even in our everyday experiences.
Exactly. He saw that as a crucial skill in navigating the complexities of the modern world, especially as we're bombarded with information and imagery that can easily distract us from what truly matters.
This is already giving me a lot to think about. It's amazing how these ideas from almost a century ago feel so relevant to the challenges we face today.
They do, don't they? And we haven't even gotten to his thoughts on life, death, and the really big questions that we all grapple with.
Makes you wonder what Northbourne would have to say about our modern day anxieties around aging and death, especially with all the advancements in technology and medicine that seem like focused on delaying those natural processes.
He most certainly had a lot to say about those topics. And you're right, his perspective really challenges the way our modern society tends to view these things. We're obsessed with youth, with staving off the effects of time, as if aging and death are these enemies to be defeated at all costs.
Yeah, it's almost like we've forgotten that it's a natural cycle. A part of life.
Exactly. Northbourne saw aging and death not as misfortunes to be avoided, but as natural, even necessary processes of detachment from the material world. He believed that as we age, we naturally become less attached to the material world, less caught up in the dramas of our egos. It's like a gradual letting go, a preparation for the ultimate letting go of death.
That's a very different way of looking at it. But it makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
And he contrasts this with our modern aversion to aging, our desperate attempts to cling to youth, to hide any signs of aging. He saw this as a sign of our fear of death, our unwillingness to accept the natural order of things. He would probably argue that by resisting these natural processes, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves.
It makes you wonder if our fear of aging and death is actually what fuels so much of our anxiety about life itself.
It's certainly something to ponder. And, this ties back beautifully to his concept of interconnectedness. He saw life and death as part of that larger web of relationships, not just these isolated events that happen to us, separate from everything else.
Right, it's all part of that larger story, that grander cycle.
He believed that everything is connected and that we are all part of a larger story that unfolds beyond our individual lifespan.
And speaking of stories, this brings us to that fascinating letter he wrote to his descendants, which you included in the research material.
Right.
He poses that fundamental question, the one we keep circling back to. Whence did we come? What are we here for? And whither are we going?
It's a question that has echoed through civilizations for centuries.
It is the question, isn't it? And it's so relevant to what we're talking about because it speaks to that human need to find meaning and purpose within that larger story. Northbourne lays out two contrasting views. You have the traditional view, rooted in the idea of a power greater than ourselves, and the evolutionist view, which focuses on human progress as the ultimate goal.
And it's pretty clear where his own beliefs lie. He seems to argue that the traditional view, the one rooted in something larger than ourselves, offers a more profound and meaningful understanding of our place in the universe.
He does. He believed that the traditional view, with its emphasis on a divine creator and a spiritual purpose for life, provided a stronger foundation for meaning and morality than a purely materialist perspective. He worried that relying solely on the material would ultimately ring hollow, especially when faced with life's biggest questions. And he seems particularly concerned about the potential consequences of this shift away from the traditional view, especially in terms of our relationship with nature. He seems to link this shift with the environmental degradation we see happening all around us.
He absolutely does. He believed that disconnecting from the sacred, from that sense of reverence for nature, leads us to exploit and degrade the environment without considering the consequences. In his view, the environmental crisis wasn't just a physical problem, it was a symptom of a deeper spiritual crisis. It's like we've forgotten that we're not separate from nature, that we're a part of it, not apart from it.
And this is where that idea of interconnectedness becomes so critical, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's not just about recognizing our connection to nature, but also about acknowledging our connection to each other, to something larger than ourselves.
He recognized the importance of personal prayer and connection to the divine, even or perhaps especially amidst the challenges of modern life.
That's something that comes up again and again in his work, this idea that even in a secularized, fast-paced world, the possibility of a spiritual awakening is available to anyone who seeks it. It's not about retreating from the world, but about engaging with it from a more grounded, connected place.
He felt strongly about the importance of establishing a habit of prayer, even amidst our busy schedules. Even a few moments of quiet reflection, gratitude, or simply seeking guidance can make a real difference. It's about nurturing that connection to something beyond the everyday.
And this is where I think his perspective on different religions is so interesting. He talks about how truth can be revealed in many ways, and that each religion essentially offers a unique path to the same ultimate reality. He seems to suggest that the specific path we choose is less important than the fact that we're on a path at all.
You're right. He was a devout Christian, but he was open to the validity of other religions. He saw them as different expressions of the same underlying truth, each offering its own wisdom and insights. He would likely encourage us to find the path that resonates most deeply with us, recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to spirituality.
The important thing is that we're actively engaged in that inner journey, that search for meaning and connection.
He also makes this fascinating distinction between saints and people who are simply virtuous.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. I found that distinction so thought-provoking.
He said a true saint isn't just someone who is morally good, it's someone who seems to radiate a certain spiritual quality, a palpable connection to something divine.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they embody that connection in a way that touches those around them.
And he suggests that while we might not all be saints, we can still benefit from their presence, from the energy they radiate. It's like their light can help to illuminate our own paths.
He believed that saints serve as these beacons of light, reminding us of the possibility of spiritual transformation, inspiring us to reach for a higher level of consciousness.
It's a beautiful thought. It reminds me of that quote from Rumi, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love." It's like the saints are a testament to the power of that pull. He also expresses concern about the future of humanity in that letter, and this is where his writing gets really prescient. He questions if we're on a path towards destruction, both of the environment and of civilization itself.
That's a heavy thought.
It is.
He saw the crisis we face today not just as a result of our actions, but as a reflection of our inner state, our disconnect from the sacred.
Yeah.
He seems to be saying that we can't solve the problems of the world solely through external means. We need a fundamental shift in consciousness, a return to those core values of interconnectedness and reverence for life.
And he seems quite skeptical of our modern obsession with progress, arguing that it often masks a deeper greed and desire for power rather than leading to genuine well-being.
Yes, he questioned what we're progressing towards. Is it bringing us closer to true happiness and fulfillment, or are we simply chasing after fleeting pleasures and material wealth while neglecting our spiritual needs? He seems to suggest that we've bought into this idea that happiness can be found in external things, in accumulation and achievement, but that true happiness comes from something much deeper.
It's about who we are, not what we have.
Exactly. It's about the quality of our relationships, the depth of our inner lives, and ultimately our connection to something greater than ourselves.
And in that letter, he challenges his descendants to think critically, to question the prevailing ideologies of their time, rather than simply conforming to what everyone else believes. He's encouraging independent thought, urging them to find their own truth.
He advocated for questioning our assumptions, seeking understanding, and not being afraid to go against the grain. He saw blind faith in any ideology, whether religious, political, or even scientific, as potentially dangerous.
He reminds us that traditions, while valuable, shouldn't become rigid dogmas. He seemed to believe that they should be living things, constantly being reinterpreted and renewed in light of our evolving understanding of the world and ourselves.
He believed that each generation has a responsibility to find its own way to embody the wisdom of the past and express it in a way that's relevant to their own time. It's not about clinging to the past, but about carrying its wisdom forward into the future.
And he challenges us to be active participants in that process of renewal, to bring our own unique gifts and perspectives to the task of preserving and transmitting the wisdom we've inherited.
He believed that every single one of us has a role to play in shaping the future, in carrying that torch of truth and wisdom forward.
I think that's such an empowering message. The idea that we're not just passive recipients of tradition, but that we have a responsibility to engage with it, to shape it, to ensure it remains relevant and meaningful for generations to come.
And he ties this back to his idea of interconnectedness so beautifully. Our thoughts, our actions, our choices, they all have a ripple effect on the world around us.
It's like we're all part of this grand tapestry, each thread contributing to the larger design.
He encourages us to find our place in that story, to contribute our own unique verse to the grand symphony of life.
What a beautiful way to put it. It reminds me of something else that really struck me about his work, his emphasis on the importance of beauty. He didn't see beauty as just this, superficial pleasure, but as something much deeper, something that reflects the divine, a glimpse into the eternal.
It's like he saw beauty as this bridge between the physical and the spiritual.
He encourages us to cultivate an appreciation for beauty in all its forms, from the grandeur of nature to the simple elegance of a single flower. And he talks about art in a similar way, doesn't he?
He believed that true art is about transmitting timeless wisdom, about connecting us to something sacred. It's not just about self-expression, but about tapping into something larger than ourselves.
It's interesting because he even extends this idea to the symbol of the cross, which he obviously saw as deeply meaningful within his own faith. But he points out that it's a universal symbol found across many cultures, and that its meaning goes far beyond its Christian context.
That's right. He saw it as representing the intersection of the human and the divine, the meeting point between the physical and the spiritual, the temporal and the eternal.
And he suggests that understanding this deeper meaning can help us make sense of our own place in the universe, to see our lives as part of something much bigger than ourselves.
It's about understanding our place within that larger story, within that grand cosmic drama.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation. It's amazing how someone who lived decades ago could have so much to say about the challenges we face today.
His work feels incredibly relevant to our modern anxieties and longings. It's a testament to the enduring power of these fundamental questions he grapples with.
You know, it's really been like unearthing a hidden treasure, this whole deep dive into Northbourne's work.
It has.
It's amazing how his words, written decades ago, resonate so deeply with, the issues we're grappling with today.
He truly seemed to tap into something timeless.
Yeah.
It's as if he anticipated the ecological, spiritual, even societal anxieties that, we face in the 21st century.
And one thing I found particularly illuminating was his correspondence with Thomas Merton,
Oh, yes.
the Trappist monk and writer. Have you had a chance to look those over?
I have, and it's fascinating to see how their ideas intertwined,
Yeah.
particularly their shared concern about what was being lost in this, relentless pursuit of progress. They were both troubled by the decline of traditional wisdom and the potential pitfalls of a purely secular worldview.
Yeah, they seem to understand each other on a deep level, these two men from such different backgrounds, both grappling with, the challenges of holding on to faith and meaning in a rapidly changing world.
And both emphasizing the importance of cultivating that inner connection to the divine amidst the noise and distractions of modern life.
Yeah.
They seem to agree that true peace and fulfillment don't come from, external achievements, but from a deep internal transformation, a reorientation of the heart.
Reading their letters, I was struck by this idea that many of the problems we face today, the environmental destruction, the social unrest, the political polarization, it all stems from this fundamental disconnect from the sacred. It's like we've lost that sense of wonder, that reverence for life that Northbourne believed was so vital for a healthy society.
You've hit on a crucial point. Northbourne reminds us that we're not isolated individuals solely pursuing self-interest. We're interconnected, part of a larger web of relationships, a cosmic order linking us to each other, to nature, and to something beyond ourselves.
And when we lose sight of that, when we forget our place within that grand scheme of things, we inevitably create suffering, both for ourselves and the world around us.
He challenges us to rediscover that sense of belonging, to remember our place in the world, and to live in a way that honors those connections. He's calling for a shift in consciousness, a return to a way of being that recognizes the inherent value and interconnectedness of all things.
It's a tall order, for sure,
It is.
but it's not an impossible one.
Right.
And I think his work offers a kind of roadmap, those principles he kept returning to. Tradition, interconnectedness, inner freedom. They provide a framework for navigating the complexities of our modern world and creating a future that is, that is more just, more sustainable, and perhaps even more spiritually vibrant.
It's about recognizing that the answers we seek aren't found solely in technology or progress, but in something much deeper, something we already possess within ourselves.
That's a powerful message, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That even amidst the chaos and uncertainty, there's this underlying potential for a more meaningful, connected way of being in the world.
A way of being that Northbourne in his life and work, so beautifully embodied.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the wisdom of Lord Northbourne and continue your own deep dive into the interconnectedness of it all. Thanks for joining us.